When Sienna Cruz walked past me at her flagship store opening like I was invisible, I felt something inside me break. This was the girl who used to sleep over at my house every weekend, who borrowed my clothes for her first job interview, who cried on my shoulder when her father died. But now, with her face on magazine covers and her artisanal skincare empire valued at $50 million, I was just another face in the crowd. She didn't even recognize me. 3 months later, when I walked into her boardroom as the new majority shareholder of Cruz Botanicals, the look on her face was worth every penny I'd spent. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me tell you how I went from the forgotten best friend to the woman who owned everything Sienna had built on the foundation of our friendship. My name is Rachel Winters. I'm 41 years old, and until 18 months ago, I was a senior financial analyst at a mid-sized investment firm in Seattle. I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable. Sensible apartment, reliable car, a 401k that would eventually let me retire. I lived a quiet life, the kind that doesn't make for interesting dinner party stories. But I had something else. I had a brilliant mind for numbers, for seeing patterns in financial data that other people missed. That skill was about to change everything. Sienna and I met when we were 7 years old in Mrs. Patterson's second grade class. She was the new girl with the thick accent and the homemade clothes, and the other kids mocked her relentlessly. I remember her sitting alone at lunch, trying not to cry while eating the rice and beans her mother had packed. I walked over and sat down next to her. "My mom packs me weird stuff too," I'd said, even though it was a lie. "Want to trade half?" From that day on, we were inseparable. Through middle school, high school, and college at Washington State, we were Rachel and Sienna, two parts of the same person. I helped her with math and science. She helped me understand people, taught me how to read social situations, how to dress for the life I wanted instead of the life I had. When we graduated, Sienna had a dream. She wanted to create a skincare line using her grandmother's recipes from Colombia. Natural ingredients, traditional methods, sustainable practices. She had the vision, the charisma, the story. What she didn't have was money or business knowledge. That's where I came in. For 3 years, I worked my day job and spent every evening helping Sienna build her business. I created her financial projections, helped her secure her first small business loan, negotiated with manufacturers, set up her accounting systems. When she needed $15,000 to purchase her first bulk order of ingredients, I emptied my savings account. "We're partners," she'd said, hugging me tight. "I could never do this without you, Rach. Never." We didn't put it in writing. She was my best friend. I trusted her completely. Cruz Botanicals launched 4 years ago with a single product, a face serum made with coffee extract and rosehip oil. Sienna's story, immigrant grandmother's secret recipe, sustainable harvesting, women-led company, was catnip for lifestyle bloggers and Instagram influencers. Within 6 months, the serum was selling out. Within a year, Sienna had expanded to 12 products. And somewhere in that year, I became less and less necessary. The late-night strategy sessions stopped. The phone calls became texts, then sporadic emails. When I'd ask about the business, Sienna would say, "Oh, you wouldn't understand, Rach. It's gotten so complicated. I have a whole team now handling the technical stuff." The technical stuff. The stuff I'd built for her. 2 years ago, Cruz Botanicals got featured in Vogue. Sienna's face was on the cover, flawless skin glowing, with the headline, "The Self-Made Mogul, Revolutionizing Natural Beauty." The article was 7 pages long. It talked about her vision, her grandmother's wisdom, her journey from immigrant daughter to CEO. My name appeared nowhere. I called her after I saw it. "Sienna, the article was amazing, but—" I know, she interrupted. "They totally got some facts wrong, but you know how magazines are. They didn't mention me at all. They made it sound like you did everything alone." Silence on the line. Then, "Rachel, I can't control what journalists write. Besides, you're not technically part of the company. You were just helping out as a friend in the beginning. Just helping out. As a friend." That's when I should have known. But I still believed in our friendship. I believed that success had just made her busy, that she'd come back around once things settled down. Last year, Cruz Botanicals went national. Sienna appeared on morning talk shows, gave a TED Talk about sustainable beauty, partnered with major retailers. Her net worth was estimated at $50 million. Forbes called her one of 30 under 40 to watch. My phone stayed silent. Then came the flagship store opening in downtown Seattle 6 months ago. It was a huge event. Celebrities, influencers, local politicians, champagne fountains, and press everywhere. I saw the Instagram posts. I wasn't invited, but I told myself I'd go anyway. Sienna would be happy to see me. We'd laugh about the old days, reconnect. I wore my best dress, the navy blue one Sienna had helped me pick out years ago for a work presentation. I did my makeup carefully, wanting to look like I belonged in her new world. When I arrived, the store was packed. Minimalist white shelves, living plant walls, soft music, and the scent of roses and coffee filling the air. And there was Sienna, holding court in the center of it all. She'd changed her hair, long and glossy now, professionally styled. Her outfit probably cost more than my monthly rent. She was laughing, touching people's arms, posing for photos with a practiced smile. I worked my way through the crowd. When I got close enough, I said, "Sienna?" She turned, her smile bright and empty. Her eyes passed over my face with no recognition. "Hi! Thank you so much for coming," she said in that polished voice I didn't recognize. Then she turned to the person next to me, dismissing me before I could even respond. I stood there, frozen. She hadn't recognized me. My best friend of 34 years had looked directly at me and seen a stranger. I left the store in a daze and sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying not to cry. Then I drove home, poured myself a glass of wine, and did something I'd been avoiding. I looked up Cruz Botanical's corporate structure. What I found made my blood run cold. Sienna had incorporated the company 3.5 years ago, right after our serum started taking off. The corporate filings listed her as sole owner and founder. No mention of my initial investment. No mention of my financial systems. No mention of partnership. She had erased me completely. That night, I didn't sleep. I went through every document I had from those early years. Texts, emails, bank statements showing my $15,000 transfer, spreadsheets I'd created, business plans I'd drafted, photos of us working together at my kitchen table, her products spread across my counters during our testing phases. I had proof that I'd been there from the beginning, proof of my investment, my labor, my partnership in building what Cruz Botanicals had become. But I also had something else. I had knowledge. I knew Sienna's business inside and out because I'd built the foundation. And I knew something most people didn't. Cruz Botanicals was financially vulnerable. The next morning, I started digging. I used my access to financial databases through work, analyzed Cruz Botanicals' public filings, talked to contacts in the industry. What I discovered was fascinating. Sienna had overextended herself. The flagship store, the national expansion, the celebrity partnerships, it was all funded by massive loans. Cruz Botanicals had impressive revenue, but their debt-to-equity ratio was dangerous. They were burning through cash faster than they were making it. One bad quarter and the whole thing could collapse. And then I found the angel investor who'd backed Sienna's initial expansion, Gregory Chen, a venture capitalist known for aggressive investing and even more aggressive exits. He owned 35% of Cruz Botanicals and had a reputation for selling his shares the moment a company showed vulnerability. I called Gregory's office and scheduled a meeting. I told his assistant I was a financial analyst interested in discussing Cruz Botanicals' market position. He took the meeting because venture capitalists always want to know who's watching their investments. Gregory Chen was in his 50s, sharp-eyed and impatient. His office overlooked Elliott Bay, all glass and steel and cold efficiency. "Miss Winters," he said, not bothering with pleasantries, "you have 15 minutes. What's your interest in Cruz Botanicals? I want to buy your shares." He laughed. Actually laughed. "My shares are worth approximately $17 million. You're a financial analyst. No offense, but that's not exactly your tax bracket." I opened my briefcase and pulled out a folder. "Mr. Chen, I know for a fact that Cruz Botanicals is 3 months away from a serious cash flow crisis. Their Q3 numbers are going to disappoint. Their expansion costs have exceeded projections by 40%, and their primary manufacturer is about to raise prices due to supply chain issues. When that becomes public, your shares will be worth significantly less." His expression changed. How do you know this? I know because I built their financial infrastructure. I know their systems, their vulnerabilities, their real numbers versus the polished ones they show investors. And I know that you're smart enough to sell high rather than wait for the crash. Gregory studied me for a long moment. Even if everything you say is true, you still can't afford $17 million. I can afford $12 million. That's my offer. You take it now, quietly, and you exit before the trouble hits. Or you wait, watch the value drop, and try to salvage what you can when everyone else is panicking. I didn't actually have $12 million. I had $127,000 in savings and investments. But I had something else. I had 3 weeks to make this happen. Gregory leaned back in his chair. I'll consider it. You have 72 hours to prove you can secure the funding. I called in every favor I'd ever earned. Remember how I said I was brilliant with numbers? For 12 years, I'd been making my firm's clients very wealthy. I'd spotted investment opportunities no one else saw, saved companies from bad acquisitions, turned struggling portfolios into gold mines. Now I asked them to bet on me. I pitched 6 high-net-worth clients on a unique investment opportunity, a controlling share in a $50 million skincare company at a significant discount, with me at the helm restructuring operations. I showed them Cruise Botanical's real financials, the vulnerabilities Sienna didn't know I could see. I showed them my projections for what the company could be worth once properly managed. 4 of them said yes. Together, they agreed to loan me the money with Cruise Botanical's shares as collateral. If I succeeded in turning the company profitable, they'd get their investment back plus 20%. If I failed, they'd own my shares. It was the riskiest thing I'd ever done. It was also the smartest. 72 hours later, I walked back into Gregory Chen's office with commitment letters totaling $12 million. He smiled for the first time. Miss Winters, you're either a genius or completely insane. Can't I be both? The sale was finalized in 3 weeks. It was all done quietly, buried in corporate paperwork that Sienna wouldn't see unless she was looking. Gregory sold me his 35% stake. Then I did something else. I started buying up shares from smaller investors who were nervous about the company's expansion debt. Within 2 months, I owned 51% of Cruise Botanicals. I was the majority shareholder. I controlled the company. Sienna had no idea. I waited until the quarterly board meeting to make my entrance. The meeting was held at Cruise Botanicals headquarters, a renovated warehouse in Sodo with exposed brick and trendy furniture. I arrived 15 minutes late, deliberately. When I walked into the boardroom, 6 faces turned toward me. Sienna sat at the head of the table, mid-sentence, talking about marketing strategies. She looked annoyed at the interruption. "Excuse me," she said in that polished voice. "This is a closed meeting. If you're here for the—" She stopped. Her face went pale. She'd finally recognized me. "Hello, Sienna," I said calmly. "Sorry I'm late." Her chief financial officer, a nervous man named Todd, stood up. "Ms. Winters, we've been expecting you. Please, have a seat." I took the empty chair directly across from Sienna. The silence in the room was exquisite. "I don't understand," Sienna said, looking between me and Todd. "Rachel, what are you doing here?" "I'm here for the board meeting," I replied. "As the majority shareholder of Cruise Botanicals, I have certain rights and responsibilities." The color drained completely from her face. "That's impossible." I opened my briefcase and slid a document across the table. "I now own 51% of this company, which means, Sienna, I own you." The next hour was beautiful chaos. Todd confirmed the share transfers. Sienna's lawyer was called. The other board members sat in stunned silence while Sienna's carefully constructed world crumbled around her. "You can't do this," she kept saying. "This is my company. My grandmother's recipes. My story." "Actually," I said quietly, "our story. Remember? You said we were partners. You said you could never do this without me. Turns out you were right." Her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't the genuine tears of the girl I'd known. They were calculated, performative. "Rachel, please, if this is about the article or the opening, I can explain." "This isn't about an article or a party," I interrupted. "This is about the fact that you took everything I helped you build and pretended I never existed. You erased me from your history. So now I'm writing a new ending." "What do you want?" Her voice was barely a whisper. I leaned forward. I want this company to succeed, properly, sustainably, without the ego-driven expansion that's about to bankrupt it. I'm installing new financial controls. I'm restructuring the debt. I'm scaling back the unsustainable operations. And you're going to step down as CEO. You're firing me? She looked genuinely shocked. No. You'll remain as creative director and brand face. That's what you're actually good at. But the business operations, the finances, the strategy, that's mine now, just like it should have been from the beginning. After the meeting, Sienna cornered me in the hallway. Her mascara was smudged. The polished veneer was completely gone. I gave you everything, she hissed. I introduced you to people. I made you cool. Without me, you'd still be just another boring numbers person. I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who'd once been my best friend, who I'd loved like a sister, who taught me about fashion and confidence and believing in myself. Sienna, I said gently, I was never boring. I was just invisible to you. There's a difference. The restructuring took 6 months. I brought in a new management team. We cut the celebrity partnerships that weren't delivering ROI. We negotiated better terms with manufacturers. We focused on the core products that actually worked instead of constantly launching new ones to feed Sienna's ego. Cruise Botanicals' stock price initially dropped when news of the management change went public. But by the 4th quarter, we were profitable again. By year-end, we'd reduced debt by 40% and increased operating margins by 25%. The business press loved the story. Financial analyst saves beauty brand from collapse. They called me the secret weapon and the numbers wizard. This time, they got the story right. Sienna still works for the company. She shows up for photo shoots and product launches, smiles for the cameras, tells sanitized versions of our story that now include my name. We're cordial, but not close. We'll never be close again. Some people say I went too far, that I should have just sued her for my initial investment, taken my money, and moved on. But this was never about the money. It was about being seen, being acknowledged, being remembered. Emma, my goddaughter, Sienna's daughter, who I'd held as a baby, called me last month. She's 16 now. Aunt Rachel, she said, Mom told me what happened. The real story. She said you saved the company. Your mom built something beautiful, I told her truthfully. I just made sure it didn't fall apart. She also told me she was a terrible friend to you. She's sorry. She's too proud to say it, but she is. Maybe Sienna was sorry. Maybe she'd learned something, but it didn't matter anymore. I'm 41 years old. I'm the CEO of a $60 million company. I've paid back my investors with returns that made them very happy. I have a corner office with a view of the Space Needle, and when I walk into a room, people know exactly who I am. Last week, I was invited to speak at a women's entrepreneurship conference. As I stood at the podium, I saw hundreds of faces looking up at me. Women like I used to be. Invisible women with brilliant minds and big dreams. I want to tell you something important, I said. If someone erases you from your own story, write a new one. If someone makes you invisible, become impossible to ignore. And if someone tells you you're just helping out as a friend, get it in writing. They laughed. They applauded. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Seen. Sienna taught me a valuable lesson, though not the one she intended. She taught me that loyalty is worthless if it only flows one direction. That friendship without respect is just exploitation with better marketing. And that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's success. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share your story in the comments if you've ever been erased by someone you helped succeed. Your voice matters. Remember, being underestimated is your superpower. Use it wisely.